All right, this is chapter 6 of The Purpose of Life, a brief scientific and magical approach for the zodiacal age of Aquarius. And this is chapter 6, Awakening. The Awakening. This is a subject that has been greatly muddled. Some may confuse this concept with ascendance, which is a different idea. Some may be over this concept because nothing happened in 2012, or because the coronavirus didn't happen in 2020 after the Great Conjunction, when Jupiter and Saturn were aligned in the sky, which happens every 20 or so years in a different zodiac sign. Maybe you were disillusioned by one of the various other events that have happened over the years that made people think everything would change in an instant. Maybe it's because all of the hype over the age of Aquarius that has been talked about since the 1930s and hyped in the 1960s, yet popular astrologers maintain won't happen until 2200 based on the Roman calendar. Yet the concept of awakening existed before 2012, or the huge movement that has swept the spiritual community in the last 20 or so years. Perhaps it's because we are at the precipice of the New Age, a name once given to the spiritual movement. Despite what you believe about the age of Aquarius, we live in a time when the people have sensed that something is happening. There have been people talking about this change in humanity, whether it's the technological singularity mathematician John von Neumann predicted, or the artificial intelligence revolution that others talk about. Maybe kind aliens will come along and solve all of our problems, or something is happening on a spiritual level. I am, quite frankly, uncertain what it means, but because so many people believe that things are changing, it will be a collective self-fulfilling prophecy no matter how many people are not aware of the movement, and not only don't desire to change, but are outright hostile to change. I heard about the awakening long before 2012, when most people came to the concept. I read a book about it called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. Back then, there wasn't much on the bookshelf when it came to the New Age. There were plenty of things written. Robert Monroe wrote an entire series that was very popular, but I never saw them in a bookstore. Dan Millman had already written The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and Zachariah Stitchin had written his books about the Anunnaki, and a few books had been written about Edgar Cayce. Yet none of these books were on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, and prior to Amazon, even in the early days of the internet, obtaining these books on these subjects was difficult and rare. A few times I have gone to surviving Barnes & Noble, there is an entire section, not a single lonely shelf with only one author's book on it, and that is because far more people are interested in these subjects than ever before. There are numerous books on out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and past life regressions. Sage Goddess is a huge company that sells primarily minerals for metaphysical purposes, and many smaller sellers have found their niche on Etsy. Here's what James Redfield had to say about the awakening back in 1993. Slowly, with little fanfare, a global transformation is taking place. As described by ancient teachings, we are awakening to this deeper inner call. The Celestine Prophecy, an experiential guide, page 1-2. The Celestine Prophecy became a New York Times bestseller, but burnt out quickly as people discovered the prophecy discussed wasn't real. While it was based on ancient ideas, James Redfield wrote the book as a parable, but people wanted to take it literally. I saw something very similar happen to Dan Millman's Way of the Spiritual Warrior, and with the Christian Left Behind series. I consider these phenomena to be based in the same sense that things are changing. According to Edgar Cayce, when Jesus was asked when he would return, he directed the disciples to a man holding a vase of water, the astrological symbol for Aquarius. In fact, it seems that every time astrology becomes excited about a transit where there will be a large shift in energy, the Christians assume it means the rapture will happen on that date. Indigenous American Jamie Sams, a contemporary of James Redfield who taught a real ancient spiritual system and was stabbed at one event by a religious fanatic, described awakening this way in 1999. The awakening process allows us to become aware of a bigger picture, allows us to expand beyond our former tunnel vision. There was no lesser or greater path through life. We have free will and are allowed either to look beyond the accepted horizons or to remain on a life path that suits our views of reality. The seen and unseen realms are of equal importance. Becoming aware of the intangible forces that shape human experience adds innumerable possibilities to our life experiences. If we choose to explore the intangible realms of consciousness, what my teachers call the dream weave, we discover new layers of life force found in spirit. Thought, emotion, dreams, feelings, aspirations, creativity, and intent. Our budding awareness of the intangible aspects of human life adds new dimensions of understanding and wisdom, allowing us to see how divine consciousness intertwines with every aspect of physical life. Page 4. As someone who has meditated on this idea for decades, I don't see the awakening as a single event that will miraculously change people in an instant. I've watched as with each event more people start questioning their reality. Some strange paradigm ideas have become popular. I watched as the Flat Earth, woke, and QAnon movements were all born from those who were awakened, and has started questioning everything. Discernment is very important on the path of the seeker, and it is very easy to take on someone else's very negative view of reality when we no longer trust a single authority. And that's because we are not listening to that still small voice that is the ultimate authority within, but an outer influence. The idea of an awakening is an ancient concept. Many believe that it was something that only happened to an elite. The structure of India's class system, with the priestly spiritual class of the Brahmin at the top, indicate how those who attain an awakening are considered to be a little more than the average human. Those who seek to serve divinity by uniting the physical and spiritual path are often set apart. In the Jewish tradition, it is the sons of Aaron, the tribe of Levites, who were set apart to be the spiritual leaders. The Buddha awakened to enlightenment. We find even more interesting concepts of awakening in the material of the Hindu practice of yoga. Yoga means union, with the different poses help to awaken and move the energy within us so we can reunite with divinity. In that practice, there is the Kundalini awakening. This is where the sleeping energy that rests within the root chakra at the base of the spine moves freely up to the top of the head and the crown chakra, where it unites with divinity. In alchemy, there is a similar concept called the chemical marriage. Here, the divine feminine energy located in the spine rises up to the top of the head, where the divine masculine resides. Much like the Kundalini awakening, this is one of the major and very rare goals of the alchemist. Edgar Cayce explained that when Aaron's staff in Exodus produces leaves and buds, it symbolizes the spine and the awakening of the spiritual centers along it, the chakra system in the Hindu tradition, but also the Sephiroth tree of life in the Kabbalistic tradition. Hence why it is a branch that symbolizes this in the Torah. The Kabbalah tree of life is the image of the Creator in that tradition, but also exists within each and every human. While those who reach this state of consciousness are rare, there are far more people interested in awakening to their higher nature than ever before. The modern convenience is that we have changed the game when it comes to survival. Our primary focus is no longer on securing food and shelter, keeping us on the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I will discuss in the next chapter. This allows us all the leisure only previously achievable by those who survived on donations to contemplate self-improvement and the divinity within. This state of consciousness is said to be the defining trait of the age of Aquarius. This new consciousness is a balance of the analytical mind, attributed to the divine masculine, the conscious self, and the intuitive mind, attributed to the divine feminine, the subconscious. Among those within the awakening community, there is the concept of the 100th monkey. There was a study by primatologists in Japan and documented by Lowell Watson in 1970. The studies occurred on a series of islands. The scientists threw sweet potatoes in the dirt. One day, a female monkey realized that she could wash the potato and it would taste better. She then taught her friends and mother of their group this new trick. While slow at first, more and more monkeys on that island learned to wash the potato before eating it until only a small remainder of monkeys remained that ate them dirty. The weird thing that happened, however, was when another group of monkeys on another island started to randomly wash their sweet potatoes. They had no contact, no method, or even remotely communicating with other islands of monkeys. This study seemed to support the idea of Carl Jung's collective unconscious. When a critical mass of 100 monkeys, just as James Redfield suggested back in 1990, learned a trick that was beneficial to the species, it was spontaneously transmitted via the species' collective unconscious. Chanel Bashar has suggested a similar effect is happening to humankind. He says that a small percentage of people who are awakened can change the entire perception of reality for the whole. This seems to be in accordance with the idea that Jesus expressed in Galatians 5:9. A little yeast makes the whole batch of dough rise. The people of the 1930s and 40s seemed to think that it was possible that we would enter a golden age where science and spirituality will be entwined once again. Not to rule the people as Rome attempted, but as something all people participate in willingly on an individual level. As more people become aware of their entire selves, that they are more their animal body but a cosmic eternal being, parading as a meat bag for a very short period of time, the more the pressure of leaving a legacy or immediate gratification will be alleviated. There are numerous books to describe the subconscious as a sleeping goddess, and in the night sky it is represented by the zodiac sign of Virgo. If you choose to believe in the idea that there is a creator who made the cosmos, the idea that Earth was placed in the midst of the constellations for a specific reason is easy to grasp. That each aspect of our reality was carefully orchestrated can be a foreign concept to many, and an idea that there is a divine plan or divine order seems like wishful thinking to many. Yet that ignores the hundreds of myths around the world that indicate that Virgo is the sleeping goddess, the zodiac sign on the horizon during the fall equinox, and she is often depicted as sleeping in myth. Virgo is associated with the physical body, and the soul is asleep when we are entombed within the flesh of the body, as we pursue pleasure and physical goals. This is a topic that I suggest that you research on your own, as numerous books have been written on the subject. I have placed 3 books in the recommended reading list on the subject. Laird Scranton, David Warner Matheson, and A. Farjani have wonderful books on the subject. To attempt to lay out it all in a few paragraphs would be a disservice. Yet the goddess within all of us is awakening. So that is chapter 6. I hope you enjoyed.